Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blackjack. Today, as always, I will be doing a deck tech for you from the comments section. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you, or perhaps make some tweaks, make some changes to a current list you have, I'm looking for any of the following metrics in the comments section: a commander, a budget, a theme, pet cards, and or a tier of the brackets 1 through 5. So again, if you're interested, please leave a comment down below and I'd be happy to put a list together for you. Today, we have a list for the Blair Twitch project, who is looking for Otharri Sun's Glory with no cards over $3 in value. So, let's get started. Otharri is a commander I've always liked. It has flying, lifelink, haste. When it attacks, you get an experience counter, and then you make a 2/2 red rebel that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. You can then pay 4 and tap an untapped rebel you control to return Otharri from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So one thing specifically that the Blair Twitch said was they were really only looking for Otharri to make the tokens, not a token doubler. And I decided to really lean into that. I don't play a lot of Rebels. I think if we look here, it looks like it's literally just one with Nayali, I would assume is how you pronounce that. But more often than not, Otharri is going to be a self-generating machine. I don't want to have anything dedicated to Rebel slots in order to get Otharri back. Ideally, if Otharri ever does die, we would just let her go to the graveyard and then get her back with Rebels that she has created herself. So that's the idea of the deck. As you can see from the budget, it's only about $70, and that's Card Kingdom pricing. So I think on TCG it'd probably be closer to 50. I did keep every card here below $3, including the land base. So get started with the Planeswalkers. We have two different Elspeths. Elspeth's Sun Champion, good for a couple of reasons. One, it can minus to be a board wipe that doesn't affect our commander. It can create tokens, which a lot of our card draw is dependent on. And then if we do ever get to ultimate it, it just makes all of the rebels that Otharri is making huge beaters in the air. Kind of along the same lines, Elspeth Terrell will gain us life, as well as make us tokens, as well as be a board wipe for all of the non-token creatures. So creature section is quite low comparatively to what you would see in most commander decks that are Boros, but again, I don't play any of the rebels. You definitely could, and then you could add more things to get those rebels back, like Sun Titan. But I wanted to try a deck list that was very light on a creature package in Boros, because I just don't think you see that very often. We have Aurelia, the Law Above. So again, most of the card draw that we have, obviously it has to be under $3, which means it's going to be restrictive. We're going to have to attack with a certain amount of creatures, or have a certain amount of creatures enter, or have to discard cards to be able to do it. And this is a good way to kind of do that, as well as get a secondary effect of if we attack with 5 or more, we get to drain and gain. Combat Celebrant, we have a couple ways to get multiple combat steps. Obviously, if you can have Otharri attack multiple times in a turn to get multiplicative experience counters, that's going to be great for you. Enduring Courage is a good way to utilize the rebels that Otharri creates and buffs them up. Mentor is the card draw we talked about. Metastatic Evangel is a good way for us to proliferate, so when we have these tokens enter, we get to add more experience counters. Nayali we already mentioned, but it gives all of the rebels double strike, and then it basically gives us pseudo card draw. Prava makes them all massive on our turn and is an engine in itself. Welcoming Vampire is going to be consistent card draw for the deck, as well as Rumor Gatherer. And then Selfless Spirit is a cool way for us to protect our board from a board wipe. Sorceries, so we have Full Throttle for another combat step, Overing Power for another combat step. Starfall Invocation is an interesting way for us to wipe the battlefield if someone has grown out of hand, as well as allowing us to get Otharri back immediately. Vandal Blast is just a good catch-all way to hit all of the artifacts. Instants, so we have Big Score, Thrill of Possibility, and Unexpected Windfall as all ways for us to discard and then draw cards. So again, we're going to have to be very welcoming to all the possibilities of card draw when we're looking at such a restrictive budget on cost. And I think for what they do, this is as good as we're going to get. Excuse me. Blacksmith skills. So we do have a couple of ways in here to protect our board, but more importantly, protect Otharri. We're not really too worried about the rebels that Othari's making, but if she stays around, that's what's most important for us to be able to win. So things like blacksmith skills, Boros charm, Ghostway, rootbound defenses, which also proliferates. Your temple is under attack, unbreakable formation, and unbound potential are all going to be ways that we are going to save our board and or save Otharri, and a couple of them have other effects as well. Like this one, you can put counters on creatures. You're probably not going to do that often. And then temple under attack, you can draw a couple cards if for some reason you need to and your board is empty. As far as removal, we have Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares. Pretty simple. Volt Charge is essentially a lightning bolt that allows us to proliferate. And then finally in this section we have Wear Tear. I usually always play this in my red-white decks. It's just a good catch-all and it's a good 2-for-1. Artifacts. So as far as our ramp package, we have Arcane Signet, Boros Signet, Everflowing Chalice, Felwar Stone, Fire Diamond, Heraldic Banner, Marble Diamond, Mind Stone, Patchwork Banner, Soul Rain, Talisman of Conviction, Thought Vessel, Bauble. So that's going to be 13, not including Staff of Completion, which I guess is like half maybe. So I wanted to pretty consistently be at more than 10 in order to get Otharri out as soon as possible, as consistently as possible. After all, the commander does cost 5, and the entire game plan is built around and predicated on having her attack every turn and keeping her alive. In addition, in the artifact section, we have Blade Hold, which is a good way for us to give double strike and get multiplicative experience counters, as we already mentioned. Contagion Clasp is another proliferation tool. Notably, all these proliferation things can hit your Everflowing Chalice. Glimmer Lens is another card draw effect for us. And then, as I've mentioned in a few of my videos in the past, the banners I don't normally play in any decks, but when you have a tribal theme, which in this case, ideally you're going to have a lot of rebels on the field, giving them a buff is worth it. Plus, if you play this on time, you're still going to be able to cast your 5-drop commander a turn early, which is what's the most important here. Idol of Oblivion is card draw. Kemba's Banner is a way for us to make one creature really, really big, assuming our board is still large. Staff of Completion does a lot of different things. I'm not going to go over every single one. I think the most important ones is mana ramp on turn 3 to get Otharri on turn 4. And then proliferation and card draw, I would say, are the two most important things that you're going to be doing. Sunforger, I always like to have in red-white decks. It's a good way for us to not only make our commander bigger to close the game out, but then also unattach it to be able to do things like card draw, protection, or even removal. So it does a little bit of everything in a deck like this. We have Swiftfoot Boots. It's a good protection piece. We would play Lightning Greaves if it was in the budget, but unfortunately it's just not. Enchantments. So we have Dawn of a New Age for more card draw. Outpost Siege, Toskai's Welcome are all going to be ways for us to draw cards in this deck. Again, you're not super excited to play 4 mana card draw, but at this budget in these colors, it's about as good as it's going to get. Divine Visitation is an interesting way for us to just close a game out. So instead of creating rebels, we're just going to make 4/4 angels that are massive. Felidar Retreat can either buff our team or make guys. We have Goblin Bombardment and Impact Tremors as our ways to deal damage for creatures either entering or leaving the battlefield. Inspiring Leader is going to buff up all of our rebels as well as Intangible Virtue. In addition to Shared Animosity, all these are ways to utilize our rebels and make them dangerous. And then finally, Windcrag Siege is a way for us to double up on our Otharri ability. We have 37 lands. A couple of the notable ones we have in here you'd be happy to play every game. Castle Ardenvale to make guys. Castle Ambrith to buff them. Diamond City, we can have it move a shield counter onto our commander for extra protection. Myriad Landscape, we've talked about before. In non-green, 2-color or less decks, I always like to play this for ramp. Restless Bivouac for a little bit of buffing. Scavenger Grounds, we really don't have any other way to interact with the graveyard, so we got to play at least one. Slayer Stronghold. Sunhome for double strike, would always be happy to have this and use it on our commander. War Room for a little bit of card draw, and then Windbrisk Heights. So that's the entire deck. I'm pretty happy with it, especially at the budget it's at. If you're looking to play at around a precon level, around that 2 power scaling in accordance with the new brackets, I think you would find this deck a lot of fun. If you do end up wanting to make changes, as I said before, I think you could cut a few of these either double combat pieces or these shared animosity, intangible virtue, inspiring leader. You could cut these anthem effects to add more rebels. But I think with what we have now, I'm fairly confident that Otharri is going to stay around, and if not, it's going to be able to come back on its own merit and its own ability to create an army. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and Godspeed.